I killed them. I injected them with insulin. I don't know why I did it." In 2016, a shocking confession sent shockwaves across Canada. A nurse, trusted to care for the elderly, admitted to murdering 8 of her patients in cold blood. But how did she get away with it for so long? And what drove her to kill? This is the horrifying true story of Elizabeth Wettlaufer, the nurse who turned her healing hands into instruments of death. Over nearly a decade, Wettlaufer preyed on the most vulnerable, elderly patients in nursing homes, using her medical knowledge to cover her tracks. Her crimes went undetected for years, leaving families devastated and a nation questioning how such a monster could operate in plain sight. But this story isn't just about the crimes. It's about the system that failed to stop her, the lives she destroyed, and the chilling question, could this happen again? Stick around, because this is one true crime story you won't want to miss. And don't forget to comment below with your thoughts. Do you think justice was served? And hit that subscribe button for more gripping true crime stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Now, let's dive into the dark and twisted world of Elizabeth Wettlaufer. Elizabeth Wettlaufer was born in 1967 in Woodstock, Ontario, a small town where everyone knew everyone. She grew up in a religious family, and by all accounts, her childhood was unremarkable. But as she grew older, something inside her began to unravel. Wettlaufer decided to become a nurse, a profession built on trust and compassion. She graduated from nursing school and began working in long-term care facilities, where she was responsible for some of society's most vulnerable, elderly patients who relied on her for their survival. But behind the scrubs and the smile, Wettlaufer was battling demons. She struggled with addiction to drugs and alcohol, and her mental health was deteriorating. She bounced from job to job, often fired for incompetence or erratic behavior. Yet, no one suspected the darkness lurking beneath the surface. On the outside, she was just another nurse doing her job. But on the inside, she was a ticking time bomb, and it was only a matter of time before she exploded. Little did anyone know, her inner turmoil would soon spill over into something far more sinister. In August 2007, Elizabeth Wettlaufer crossed a line she could never return from. Her first victim was 84-year-old James Silcox, a resident at the Care St. Care nursing home in Woodstock, where Wettlaufer worked. Silcox was a World War II veteran, a man who had lived a full life. But in his final days, he was vulnerable, relying on the care of others. Wettlaufer saw an opportunity. One night, she injected Silcox with a lethal dose of insulin. Insulin, when administered in large amounts, can cause a person's blood sugar to plummet, leading to coma and death. And because insulin breaks down quickly in the body, it's incredibly difficult to detect in autopsies. Silcox's death was initially ruled as natural causes. No one questioned it. No one suspected foul play. And Wettlaufer walked away, unscathed. But this was just the beginning. James Silcox was her first victim, but he wouldn't be her last. Over the next several years, Wettlaufer continued to prey on the elderly. Her victims were mostly residents at the nursing homes where she worked, men and women in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, many of whom were already frail and sick. She used the same method every time, a lethal injection of insulin. It was quick, quiet, and almost impossible to trace. And because her victims were elderly, their deaths rarely raised suspicion. One by one, Wettlaufer's patients began to die under mysterious circumstances. But with no obvious signs of foul play, their deaths were written off as natural causes. Families grieved, but no one questioned the nurse who was supposed to be caring for their loved ones. It was the perfect crime. Or so she thought. As Wettlaufer's killing spree continued, her personal life was falling apart. She struggled with addiction, often showing up to work under the influence of drugs or alcohol. She was fired from multiple jobs, but somehow, she always managed to find another position at a different nursing home. Her mental health was deteriorating, and she began to see herself as a mercy killer. In her twisted mind, she wasn't a murderer, she was an angel of mercy, ending the suffering of her elderly patients. But the truth was far darker. Wettlaufer wasn't motivated by compassion. She was driven by a need for control, a desire to play God. And with each kill, she became more brazen, more reckless. It was only a matter of time before her crimes caught up with her. In 2016, Wettlaufer finally reached her breaking point. She checked herself into a mental health facility, where she confessed to a psychiatrist that she had killed multiple patients. The psychiatrist alerted the authorities, and Wettlaufer was arrested. During the investigation, police discovered a journal where she had documented her crimes in chilling detail. Her confession stunned investigators and left families grappling with unimaginable grief. For the first time, Canada was forced to confront the terrifying reality of a serial killer operating within its healthcare system. In 2017, Elizabeth Wettlaufer pleaded guilty to 8 counts of first-degree murder, 4 counts of attempted murder, and 2 counts of aggravated assault. She was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 25 years. During the trial, the victims' families delivered emotional impact statements, expressing their pain and anger. Many questioned how Wettlaufer had been able to get away with her crimes for so long. Her case sparked a national conversation about the oversight of healthcare workers and the need for better protections for vulnerable patients. Elizabeth Wettlaufer's crimes left a permanent scar on Canada's healthcare system. But her case also sparked crucial reforms to protect the vulnerable. As we close this chapter, one question remains: how many other Elizabeth Wettlaufers are out there, hiding in plain sight? If you found this story shocking, don't forget to comment below with your thoughts. Do you think justice was served? And hit that subscribe button for more gripping true crime stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Thanks for watching, and remember, the truth is often stranger and darker than fiction.